Thank you for coming out. It's not quite so cold tonight, that's a good thing. Let's get as usual by standing for the pledge of allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Ms. Burke, would you call the roll, please?
Council President Suzanne Souter,
Here.
Councilperson Joseph Day, Councilperson Nerman Zubaka,
Here.
Councilperson Andrew Zelt,
Here.
Councilperson Brian Mattaway. Also present, Mayor Valerie Leary, City Administrator Antonina Tantillo, City Treasurer James Wistman, Chief of Police Richard McCabe, Building Official Jeffrey Bergstrom, City Solicitor Michael Hoffman, and City Planner Chris Rogers.
Thank you. We're going to add something now that we have Chief Majewski, Chief Emeritus Majewski, and some members of the Delaware Fire Prevention Commission who have a presentation today.
That's you, Bill. You know what? I can do this.
Well,
Probably, you'll be able to hear me.
recording. But it helps the recording.
I get it. Our meetings are recorded also. Thank you, Council President Souter. On behalf of the Delaware State Fire Prevention Commission, last month, most of the public doesn't realize what a huge step the City of Newcastle did to provide for the life safety of the residents of the City of Newcastle, visitors, and our own fire department folks. By not excluding the residential sprinkler portion of the International Building Code, now that as we move forward, new houses that are built and largely renovated houses are going to have those residential sprinklers. And they are a huge life safety initiative for both the residents and for us, the firefighters. I am very happy to be here. First time in probably 30 years I've addressed this council since I've been the fire chief. But on behalf of myself as a commissioner for the Delaware State Fire Prevention Commission, I have with me Joe Leonetti, Commissioner of Delaware State Fire Prevention Commission, Bill Kelly, Vice Chair, Ron Marvel, Chair, Jeff Eisenbray, Commissioner, Tom DeCristofaro, and we also have at the very end tonight the Fire Marshal for the state of Delaware, John Rudd. So this is a big deal for us. We hope it's a big deal for you. I'm not going to read the where is and the whereases, but basically we have a resolution from the commission thanking, acknowledging the forward thought of the council here, Mayor and Council, and we thank you for improving the life safety of both our residents and our firefighters. So thank you.
Well, like a picture.
Sure, sure. Well,
Good, I'm sorry. That you for all us to get up. I should be up front, right? Yeah. I'm gonna do it. I'll go in the back. I know my spot.
Nobody does.
Thank you.
Everybody from the back.
Friday.
Senior Center was never designed.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're going to jump ahead on the agenda a bit to the joint proclamation from the mayor and city council recognizing the life and legacy of the Honorable Marcella Teal Pettit. I believe some of the families here tonight, and the mayor's going to read the proclamation. If you'd like to come to the podium for that, that would Be nice.
The Office of the Mayor and Newcastle City Council proclamation recognizing the life and legacy of the Honorable Marcilia Teal Petty. Whereas Marcilia J. Petty was born April 7th, 1941, in the Buttonwood neighborhood of Newcastle to Reverend Elliot and Indiola, sorry about that, Taylor. And whereas Mrs. Petty is part of the history of Newcastle, as a lifelong resident of Newcastle, she attended the historic Buttonwood Colored School. It was one of the first African-American students to integrate at the William Penn High School. And whereas during her time at William Penn High School, Mrs. Petty was the first and only African-American majorette during her tenure at William Penn. And Mrs. Petty was a lifelong public servant who worked at the Colonial School District and the Rubber Company, served as a director of the Buttonwood Civic Association, which preserved and restored the Buttonwood Colored School as a museum. And whereas Mrs. Petty continued her public service by serving the people of the city of Newcastle as a city council person for 12 years, from 2005 to 2017. And whereas during Mrs. Petty's time on city council, she worked as a liaison for buildings, city police, and parks and recreations, where she organized the city summer recreation program. She also worked to provide maintenance to Battery Park, mitigate flooding in the city, and repair city streets. Mrs. Petty was dedicated to preserving city history while making improvements to the city. Mrs. Petty believed in a balance between the old and new. And whereas Mrs. Petty also worked closely with other public service, such as Senators Coons, Tom Carper, then Senator Joe Biden, Governors Ruth Ann Minner, John Carney, and Michael Castle. She also served Delawareans as a delegate at 3 Democratic national conventions. And whereas Mrs. Petty was married to former Newcastle City Police Chief Eugene Petty, who is part of Newcastle's history in his own right, the two have served the city and the people of Newcastle for many years, leaving a legacy in the city. And whereas Mrs. Petty passed away on January 18th, 2026, leaving her handprint and legacy on the city of Newcastle. And whereas Mrs. Petty's remarkable life touched and enriched the lives of many, her absence leaves a void that cannot be filled and will be deeply felt by all who knew, loved, and admired her. We join her family and friends in celebrating a well-lived life, extend our heartfelt condolences to her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and their extended families as they remember her with pride and affection. Her absence will be felt in Newcastle for many years, as the loss of Mrs. Petty is a profound loss to our community. Now, therefore, I, Valerie Leary, Mayor of the City of Newcastle, along with the entire City Council, express our admiration and profound gratitude to Mrs. Marcilia Teal Petty. With this proclamation, we thank Mrs. Marcilia Teal Petty for her service and dedication to the City of Newcastle.
Just to formalize this, is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve the resolution.
A second? All in favor? Aye. Motion's approved.
Thank you. We can take a photo with that and then we'll take a pretty one second.
Just nice, Laura. You guys should come over here too. Yeah, come over here. Work.
All right, we'll now get back to the regular order of the agenda with the minutes of the January 13th, 2026 meeting. Are there any corrections or comments from council, additions?
One for the hearing itself, under public comment, I believe the first one should be David Majewski Senior.
Yeah.
I think it's just a misspelling.
Right. Senior, same spelling as junior, who's the fire chief of Goodwill. And there, I found that one and one more, small one, on page 16. The resolution 2611 for Carmela Longobardi to Historic Area Commission. There's only one L in her first name, Carmela. It's spelled properly further down, but it's has the incorrect spelling twice, so we can fix that.
So for the regular meeting minutes on page 5, under the fire company report, it should be Joe Vanucci, but that's a V instead of a P in the first one, 50 years of service. Vanucci.
Be like Victor, right?
That's right, that's correct. That was all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any corrections to either of these? Okay, I guess we have to vote separately. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the public hearing of January 13th? A second? All in favor? Aye. And then a motion to approve the minutes of the January 13th regular meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wisman.
Yes, ma'am. I'm delighted to give this report again because we started out the month with $12,973,000 in bank accounts. And we ended up the month with $12,748,000. So it's a decrease of only $224,000. And that's as at the end of January. The January, we through 58% of the year calendar-wise, and revenue-wise, we've collected about 83% of our revenues. So we've gotten most of our revenues in. So those huge amounts I just mentioned are as a result of revenues that we've collected. Meanwhile, our operating expenses, we've operated at about 53% of our budget, and it's remember 58% of the year is over. So we're going to have a bit more expenditures moving forward than we've normally had. But we've got plenty of reserves, in my mind, to protect ourselves. There's some expenses that may come on the books that, but we've got reserves for most of that. So unless someone has a serious question, I'd be more than happy to say that's my report.
Any questions for Mr. Wisman?
That's a quick question about the budget stabilization fund line. I see that it's increased about a little over 13,000 from prior period. Is that interest rate, do you know, or is it
Yes.
some?
That's the interest, and that's pointing that out.
Thanks for leaving it in there. It's nice to see the, the account growing, and showing it. Appreciate it.
Anything else? Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mataway has a question?
No, sorry.
Motion to approve the treasurer's report.
And a second, okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Tantillo?
Thank you. Sorry, give me one second. All right, good evening, everyone. The city has had quite a busy January as we worked through a 10-year snowstorm and very low temperatures. And I would like to provide an in-depth report on Winter Storm Fern that we faced during the weekend of January 24th through Monday, January 26th, and share all of the hard work that was completed to properly prepare for, manage, communicate about, and clean up from such a large storm. The city was aware of the severity of the storm from the Monday and Tuesday before it started. At all times, and especially throughout the typical months of storms, myself and city staff continuously track the weather to be prepared for what's expected and how it would impact the city. On Tuesday, the 20th, before the storm, myself, along with Public Works Director Delgado and Police Chief McCabe, began discussing the weather reports, the severity, and how it could impact the city. Public Works Director Delgado also placed a larger than typical order for salt that Tuesday to be prepared for such a storm. From Thursday the 22nd through Monday the 26th, when the storm stopped, we had daily calls with the County Office of Emergency Management and state, county, local, and private partners to coordinate efforts and share resources. The calls were very helpful to understand how we could all work together to prepare for the storm. Internally, on Thursday the 22nd, I had a meeting with Public Works Director, the Newcastle Police Department, Goodwill Fire Department, and Municipal Services Commission to discuss how we were planning for the upcoming storm and how to coordinate efforts and assistance. Public Works was prepared to come in for the storm with MSC ready to assist us as necessary, as again, it was larger than a typical storm that we've seen over the past few years. We also had concerns with extremely low temperatures before, during, and after the snowfall, in addition to ice expected to fall. Communications and updates regarding the storm and the city's efforts were communicated by myself to the internal teams and partners to ensure that everyone had the most accurate information. Again, as we recognize the severity of the storm from before it began, we adjusted our plans with every update from weather reports and county emergency management to ensure that we were ready. Public Works staff came in overnight from Saturday into Sunday, the 25th, as the storm began. Overall, they salted and plowed for more than 16 hours on Sunday the 25th, 11 hours on Monday the 26th, and 8 hours on Tuesday the 27th. During this time, the Municipal Services Commission also helped us with plowing. We continued additional plowing and snowing relocation from Wednesday the 28th through Friday the 30th. This was completed by Public Works, the Municipal Services Commission, and one of our street plowing contractors, Cirillo Brothers, who have been an enormous help during the storm, especially with relocating the large mounds of snow that were reducing parking and street widths. Once all of the city was initially plowed on Sunday and Monday, during and immediately following the storm, all three, the Public Works team, MSC, and Cirillo Brothers, were focused in all neighborhoods throughout the city to continue to ensure the city is as safe and cleaned up as possible. Public safety via the Newcastle Police Department and Goodwill Fire Company continued throughout this city for the duration of the storm. On Saturday, the 31st, Public Works worked to salt the city as the low temperatures and ice continued over the weekend. Again, work continued on Monday, February 2nd through Friday, February 6th by City Public Works, MSC, and Cirillo Brothers to continue snow removal and salting as the ongoing low temperatures and ice continued to pose an issue for the city. It's important to note that the Public Works team was still able to conduct solid waste and recycling removal following the storm while still cleaning up the snow and ice. The city decided to coordinate cleanup efforts and snow and ice removal with one of the city's road improvement contractors, Cirillo Brothers, as the storm was a lot different than others, with the inches of ice on top of the snow, making it difficult to remove and a lot more snow than storms in more recent years. Cirillo Brothers was the selected contractor for the publicly bid road pavement contract, who's been working with this storm and for city road repair projects since the fall of 2024. We've previously worked with Cirillo Brothers on many other projects over the years. Along with Public Works and MSC, Cirillo Brothers utilized their large staff, along with 10 Bobcat skid steers with tracks and other large construction equipment to move large areas of snow blocking streets, sidewalks, and parking spaces, making the city safer for residents. Public Works and MSC were managing the storm to the best of their abilities, but the city does not currently have all of the equipment and materials to handle a storm of this magnitude, which does not occur every year, which is why we need to work with a larger company who did have the equipment needed to tackle the snow and ice. While we're awaiting final bills for the snow event, we do know that the utilization of Cirillo Brothers will cost us at least $80,000. Overall, throughout the entirety of the storm and following the storm, the city also utilized over 80 tons of salt, which is about 4 times as much salt than would normally be used for a single storm. With these unexpected snow and ice removal expenses, I wanted to take a moment to review the city budget for snow and ice events. We currently have a budget of $9,000 for salt, snow, and ice removal and related contractors for fiscal year 26. This will only cover a small portion of this year's snow and ice control expenditures. Please be assured that we have the funding to cover the excess costs associated with the storm via municipal street aid funding. Municipal street aid is state of Delaware funding provided to municipalities for street improvements. Street improvements include the removal of snow and ice and the laying of material for traction per Title 30, Chapter 51 of the Delaware Code, along with paving and grading of streets and sidewalk repairs, along with other matters of street improvements. As of December, we have $688,000 plus in our MSA restricted account. We are also using this funding for street improvements such as paving and other ADA ramps. This fiscal year, there's plenty of funding to allocate for the snow and ice removal for the storm. Communication was provided to residents via the city website, city Facebook, and city Code Red emergency alert services to alert everyone of the severity of the storm, the state of emergency, and driving restrictions in place, in addition to updates on the work to clean the city via snow plowing and updates regarding the city's refuse and recycling removal for the week. Thank you to all who have signed up for Code Red thus far. During the storm, signups continued by residents, which was very helpful. Please continue to encourage your friends and neighbors to sign up to receive the most up-to-date emergency alerts. Thank you to our Public Works team, MSC and Cirillo Brothers, for their immense efforts to clean up and conduct their normal responsibilities. And thank you to the Newcastle Police Department and Goodwill Fire Company for their efforts during this storm and always. Finally, thank you to all of the residents for their patience as we work to clean up and their own efforts to clean up their sidewalks during and following the storm. And lastly, as winter continues, we'll continue tracking inclement weather and the very low temperatures, and we'll handle whatever comes our way. Regarding grants, I have a bunch of updates for the past month. The Outdoor Parks, Recreation and Trails Program grant, we finally received that award letter in the amount of $190,000, which is $40,000 more than we initially expected, which is very exciting. Remember, we did apply for a project in the amount of $342,982, and we will need to match the same amount awarded. We will have to continue discussing this match at the mid-year budget review, which will be scheduled shortly. Additionally, my intent is to apply for additional grants to provide that match, such as the TAP grant. As announced at the last meeting, we were awarded the federal Safe Streets for All Planning and Development grant to develop a safety action plan and demonstration project in the amount of $435,870. This will require an applicant match of $108,967, which again, I would like to discuss at an upcoming mid-year budget review meeting. During the past month, we had additional conversations with the State Historic Preservation Office regarding our application to the Federal Historic Preservation Fund funds for certified local governments. The first grant would help us pursue a historic designation for the Buttonwood School and begin pursuing a historic designation for Dobbinsville. We are awaiting the final notice for this award, but we are hopeful that we will get this funding. And we will continue with pursuing a second grant application for this fiscal year for a preservation effort in recognition of America 250. During January, we applied for a DHSS and DNREC PFAS awareness and outreach grant in the amount of approximately $742,000. This was discussed last meeting with council to gain support, and that support was granted via resolution 2026-13. The grant application focused on programming and tools to provide residents the knowledge and tools to avoid PFAS and make informed decisions regarding PFAS. Additionally, I have been in touch with representatives from Representative McBride, Senator Blunt Rochester, and Senator Coons offices regarding the City of Newcastle water resource priorities for potential funding with the Army Corps of Engineers, which could potentially connect us with funding to address flood mitigation along the Delaware River, to include dike elevation and extension, and also address the Delaware River Trail, which will in itself address flooding concerns via potential dike elevation and extension. I will provide an update as soon as I have one, which may not be for a few months. I have also met with representatives from Delta to discuss the TOP grant, the Transportation Alternatives Program grant. Their application just recently opened and is due on April 17th. I intend to apply for this grant to continue planning for the Delaware River Trail and to aid with funding for items identified by WMAPCO. I'll continue to provide updates on this as well as I prepare this. There are a few additional private grants that I'm looking into applying for in the upcoming months, and I'll provide an update as I do apply for them. And finally, regarding city projects, APS has been continuing the ADA program and repairs and installation throughout the city. And once the weather finally warms up, Cirillo Brothers will continue the roadway improvements. And then finally, for the dog park fencing, we are just waiting for the quotes to come in, and then we will have an update on that. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Tantillo? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief? Did you? Yes.
Put it on the bottom of that.
Good evening. I want to start first by recognizing the Petty family. I was very honored to have spoken at Teal's celebration of life. And there, I did my best to try to explain the impact that Teal had on our police department. I'm not so sure I stuck the landing, though. I might have been a little nervous. But it is important that I think, especially council recognizes this. I think it was her last term in the city council, and you know, I confirmed this by just got off the phone with the chief that preceded me. She was very instrumental in allowing us to really reshape how this police department is structured and how it's run. We made some really significant changes. He really built the framework to what we have now, where we have supervisors, 4 shifts, those 4 supervisors. The way we reframed our operational budget to kind of turn this into a 21st century type police department. And it was not, believe it or not, it was not a very easy thing to do. We were changing the way things had been done for really a long time. So, and I know Teal's comment towards the end was the chief at the time earned the right to take the shot to do it, and let's see how he does after 2 years. So he was very instrumental in really creating the structure that exists now. And Teal had a hand in it. So we've talked about the impact that your family's had on the city, but really specifically was police department. So we're very grateful and super honored to have had a chance to do my best to speak on Saturday. So I know you've had a long weekend, so you continue to be in our thoughts. If there's no questions about the report that I submitted, I do want to touch on a few things. There's a significant number of other complaints you may see in the Part 2 crimes. I just want to highlight what that meant. Those are transports. Those are some crash data make it there, some local fugitives. So and if you saw that increase in number, I wouldn't be overly alarmed about that. We have the attack prediction run is scheduled for March 7th. We're all familiar with that run, the 5K. We will have the city surrounded for about an hour. I know it's challenging for residents and business owners. So we're going to start our outreach now with local businesses, let them know what it looks like. The route's the same route that it's been for years. We'll have a significant presence, to maintain safety. We'll work with our Delta partners, the local fire department and the fire police to help make this a smooth event. To this point, I think we have 2,000 or so registered to run/walk. The runners are usually done pretty quick. It's the walkers that kind of, keep this going. And at the 60-minute mark, we'll blow the whistle like everybody on the sidewalk. So we ask that you bear with us and the folks that are working the intersections. I wanted to touch base about the website updates or upgrades we're gonna be conducting over the next week or so. The significant impact here is that, in order for us to remain compliant with House Bill 206, where we had to create the Police Accountability Committee, to which consultant chairs, there's been some added language to the regulatory part of this where we need to public face this committee. So we're going to add a tab on our website that outlines the public, or the Police Accountability Committee, the names of the committee. We're gonna upload the bylaws. We'll have the minutes stored there. And then there will be a generic email box that will be assigned to the Police Accountability Committee so the public can communicate with the PAC, along with, we've added another line to our phone line of the police department that has, the PAC has their own voicemail. So those are the three standards that have been changed with the regulations that we're upgrading so that we can stay compliant. And then I just wanted to touch base. I know we've talked about this before the legislative session started. We're tracking some bills that may have some impact, especially locally. So I wanted to focus tonight on House Bill 133. This is otherwise known as the Fees and Fines Bill. I don't know if anybody's tracking it. So I do believe this left committee last session, but it never hit the floor. So in a nutshell, what House Bill 133 does is it creates presumptive qualifications for a waiver so that folks that would be convicted of either a traffic offense or a criminal offense, where they're assessed a $15 fee that funds the violent crime fund. Advocates are arguing that this is a form of debtor's prison. We would argue that, philosophically, that we're asking that those that use the system help pay for the system as opposed to the taxpayer. To kind of put things in perspective, the genesis of the Violent Crime Fund started many years ago with the state police went to the legislatures and said, we're short troopers. They were asked to find a revenue neutral source to help fund the salary to increase the staff. So at present, the Violent Crime Fund funds the salaries of 20 state troopers, which includes a full-time SWORD team, which all local agencies have the ability to use. Locally, what it means is a part of this fund also goes to the municipalities, and that number is based on the amount of sworn officers that each agency has. So for us particularly, and I go back to when I was promoted to chief in 2018, since that point, the Violent Crime Fund has given us over $330,000. And I just want to share with you, Jim, real quick, what that fund has helped pay for. It starts with, I think the very first year, we started our body-worn camera program using this fund. The entire startup was paid for by the Violent Crime Fund. A lot of remodeling was done to the cameras we have in our cars. So now these cameras that we wear interface with our NVR. So that was a huge step. And since then, we've been able to maintain this with general funds. And we've had one of the most robust body-worn camera programs in the state for a while. So now that it's law, we've been in compliant and remain compliant. And it's been an effective tool for a number of reasons. Also that year, we found that our tasers at that point had been out of warranty, which really made this agency kind of vulnerable. If you're out of warranty, you also lose. If something were to go wrong with the taser, or something were to be defective, we may not have the coverage. So this fund paid for an entire change out for all of our tasers, which was about a $20,000 investment. We have used this money to create a records management system, which has allowed us to public face internally our policies so that officers have immediate access to what our policies are and changes that are made, along with a program that allows us to test our officers and their knowledge of policies and procedures. So this program helps build flashcards and tests so that our officers can stay up to date with the policies as they change. All of that, again, funded with violent crime. I think probably one of the most significant things we get from this is prior to 2018, the way that we provided security for major events, particularly Separation Day, was with what little funding we got from the state for that event, but then it came out of the city budget. And as a result, we did not provide the type of security that really should have existed for these events. So as it stands now, we're able to, this is an all hands on deck event, and it's a costly event. It's around $12,000 to get our officers to work this overtime. We get all of our officers for 12 hours on Saturday and about half of our officers for about 6 hours on Friday night. All of that funded by violent crime. It's also given us the opportunity to put officers out on overtime to address crime trends. During the period of unrest, we were able to stand up a significant amount of response with officers all using this money. So our concern here is that advocates are suggesting that last year, I think 2024, the fund was around $10 million in fees. The estimate is about 40% of that could be impacted based solely on the presumptive qualifications for the waiver. So that math, if I'm any good at math, is around $6 million. So we understand the governor has added about $6 million in his GRB to offset this. The concern we have is that it's a recommendation, it's not a line item. It's not guaranteed. And our hope is that this is not something we have to address every year, because the first thing to go will be the municipal part of this, without a doubt. And at high view, you've seen what kind of impact it would have. So we've asked the League of Local Governments to help us have these discussions with our legislators, talk about the impact. And quite frankly, I don't know that anybody really understands the impact. I think the key word in the fiscal note is estimate, and at the very end, indeterminate. So those are two unsettling words when we're talking about funding things that our communities really need. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, let you know that the League, we believe, is engaged in this conversation, and any help we can get from our local officials would be greatly appreciated. So, and I think that's all I have for tonight. If we have any questions, I'll be glad.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Okay.
I think that's on. It was nice to see you on Saturday. You did an excellent job. I just want you to know at the homegoing service.
Thanks.
I had a note to ask you about House Bill 133, because you and I have talked about it in your office. And I appreciate you bringing it up. I've seen some estimates and articles that say 60% of the funding is in the right if this goes through. I've looked at the draft bill as is, and it has extensive support from a lot of co-sponsors, et cetera. And it's important for us in our seats as a small municipality to look at this and see what's happening in Dover, because this is going to directly impact the types of services, our budget, et cetera. And that's why we have to constantly look at revenue and additional revenue streams, because the revenue streams that we currently have may not always be there in the future. So I want to, again, thank you for bringing this up. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And you bring a good point. I think one of the arguments is that the Violent Crime Fund is not sustainable. It has been one of the most sustainable funds that I've really, been part of. Unfortunately, it is the result of either traffic or criminal conduct. But I don't know that a $15 assessment is really something that we should be worried about when it comes to accountability and getting folks to comply. The other point that I should have brought up, and I'm glad you mentioned this, was the one thing that's different about our state than some of the surrounding states is our baselines are very low. This is more of a but most states jack their baselines up and then collect the money that way. This is more transparent. You know what you're paying for when you get these assessments. You know you're paying for the video phone back in the day or court security. It outlines it in your fees and fines. So we certainly recognize that there may be people that are impacted. We're not trying to put anybody in debtor's prison, but I don't think it's unreasonable for somebody that commits a violent crime to have to contribute to a fund that fights violent crime. Thank you.
Is it possible for you to send us the list of stuff that we've used that money for to improve the police department?
Yes.
It's just easier for us to make an argument and write an email to our representatives and senators.
Absolutely.
And right now, as the bill stands, I think you mentioned, but to be clear, they're talking about wiping it away, but there's no direct correlation to how they're going to fund it in the future, right? And that's the concern for municipalities, right? Newcastle has different concerns, different budgetary constraints than Dover or Wilmington, for example.
For sure. So, and to be clear, they're not mentioning wiping it away. They're creating this presumptive qualification for a waiver. So ultimately, it would fall on a judge whether or not the defendant is eligible for the waiver. But the presumptive qualifications that exist right now are so broad. There are suggestions 40%. You've read somewhere at 60%. Just to give you an idea what it looks like, anybody that qualifies in the Office of Defense Services is eligible, is presumptively qualified. There's no means testing to this. We don't know how to confirm whether or not they're impacted by these fees or not. Anybody eligible for SNAP, anybody who's been in prison, is presumptively qualified for a waiver. So we don't know what that impact would look like. So it is our fear that this could go away. And it certainly, as the financial situations down in Dover get worse and worse, we're concerned that this is one of the lines in the GRB that may just go away.
If I may just ask one more question, Chief. Just a shift, I don't want to talk about it, but just, I'm horrified what's happening with ICE across the country, but I wanted to ask you what's happening in Delaware. I've read something this morning that in Clayton, I believe, there's been a arrest. I don't know if the police department is engaged with Homeland Security. I just wanted to ask if there's a way, if ICE is coming to Newcastle, to make sure that our residents are treated with dignity, and, have a benefit of the doubt rather than, what we're seeing on TV.
Right. Well, thank you, Ed. So we are working on statewide, a better way of messaging to kind of put our residents at ease that we totally understand that being treated with dignity part of this. I would caution anybody that maybe gets a view of what's happening based on TikTok, based on videos, and confirming that. I will tell you that I've spoken to HSI and ERO about deconfliction. They've agreed to deconflict, which means they will notify the jurisdiction where they're working in. That's so that there's no confusion. The IACP has adopted a resolution that recognizes some of the concerns. We as an association are going to adopt a resolution once it's signed, kind of highlight the concerns we have. Communication is a big piece to this, and we would absolutely communicate with our residents if we thought there was an issue. Sure.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, council communications, start with Mr. Mataway tonight.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone, again. As America celebrates 250, it's important that we recognize those heroes and sheroes locally who have fought and served in the armed services. And that's something that I pledge to continue to do throughout the year. And so, not even before I got home last month, I had an email from a local resident with some highlights of people who served. So I just want to say their names briefly. These residents all are from the Boothurst community. Neil Morris, John Pridgett, Caleb Ward, Judy Bryan, Neil, Frank Johnson, Tillis, Breland, and Bill Shirley, and Mr. Roy Williams. They all served in the Army, Navy, and ancillary armed services. Thank you for your service. In states of emergencies, it's natural to want to be with your family and friends. And this past storm, as mentioned, police, fire, MSC representatives, public works representatives, et cetera, were out servicing us. So I just want to thank them and acknowledge them for their sacrifice. Ms. Tantillo, in 2022, before you were in your seat, before I was in my seat, and others, there was a report that was done by Energize Delaware in respect to the city and 222 Delaware Street and another building. And that report indicated that there could be some substantial savings in regards to energy and pollutants that are put out. For example, it said that approximately 38.25% reduction in electric energy, 65.83% reduction in natural gas, 40.84% reduction in carbon dioxide. As stewards for the city, but also as stewards for the environment, I think that's something that we need to look into. And I want to check in with you, and I'll send you the report if you haven't seen it, to make sure that we action that. What this report omitted was the trolley barn in addition to the police station. And so I would like to see if Energize Delaware can come out and look at some efficiencies in regards to those two buildings. Additionally, Energize Delaware program for not-for-profits and government organizations in which the savings, they have grants that can help pay for upgrades to equipment, systems, and controls that reduce energy and cut the cost of utility. Okay, thank you. I had a couple legislative updates and things that I was tracking. I was going to mention House Bill 133, but Chief had mentioned that in regards to things that I thought was interesting. There's a lot going on. They're on break right now. We'll go back in March. Currently right now, Sussex County and Fenwick Island is at odds with the state in regards to a land use dispute. Essentially, Fenwick Island and Sussex County have said, we don't want offshore wind. And their land use boards have said no to it, but the state and the General Assembly is trying to come in and say no. So no, they're saying we're gonna do it anyway. Again, we're a small state, and what happens in Sussex County and Kent County can affect Newcastle County. So this will be interesting to watch as it could potentially chip away at local control. Secondly, the city of Wilmington, their council and their state representatives have put forth a bill in Dover that would limit the proximity and the proliferation of liquor stores in their city as to where they can and cannot go. So that's something that will be also interesting to follow. Earlier this year and late last year, Governor Matt Meyer issued a state of emergency in regards to literacy. Literacy is the key to success for all stages of life. A lot of people associate it with children, but it is becoming increasingly a bigger problem with seniors as people age, are isolated, have more medical appointments, et cetera. And so late last year, there's an organization, not-for-profit organization out of Minnesota called My Little Library. And I reached out to them and I actually applied for a grant in which they would give us a free little library. And a little library is a little library that can go in any public space on people's property, et cetera. And it's almost like a library share. And unfortunately, they had a high volume of requests compared to their funding. And so my application was denied. However, I'm glad that Blue has my back. And when I say Blue, I mean the men and women of the Newcastle City Police Department. So I reached out to our local FOP. I told them about this program and what I'm trying to do. And they said, hey, we're on board and we'll fund one of them. And so the goal and strategy is to have maybe up to 10 of these little libraries at parks, public places, playgrounds, baseball fields, et cetera, and to which we can share in literacy and stand for literacy in our community. So please stay tuned. And an ode back to my childhood and a popular show at the time, I want to super double dare any individual, any business that has an interest in sponsoring or supporting this initiative as we stand up for literacy in our community. This past weekend, the city and the family mourned the death of Ms. Teal Petty, and she and others held open the door for me as I sit in this role. And when I got into this role, I said one of my ultimate objectives is to make it better for other people. And in doing that, I started working on, when you come into any job, there's like a norming, forming, storming type of thing. And this is a hard job and it constantly changes. And so I am working on a council person roadmap. Of course, it's not precatory in any way, but my goal and hope is to provide a resource or perhaps some do's and don'ts, or I messed up here for someone else so that their road may be a little bit less choppy. So stay tuned for that. And I certainly will be reaching out to current council members, former council members, to get their perspectives, because the city of Newcastle is too big to fail. It means too much to too many people, and we need people in seats that can get acclimated quickly and yield positive results for the citizens. And then lastly, in September, I mentioned that this year I'm going to be looking forward to honoring and doing some things to dignify Mr. Giuseppe Belenca. On March 19th, he would have been his 140th birthday. So please stay tuned next month. I got an email earlier today, and really looking forward to doing some exciting things and some partnerships around aviation and his history and legacy, not only in Newcastle, but throughout the country and world. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zvaka.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, first, I want to just honor the family for being here from Miss Betty. Sorry for your loss and our loss as well. It seems like a life filled with great service for others and great perseverance, it seems, from what I'm learning about Miss Betty. And I hope that we can all strive to be a little more like Miss Betty in our lives and how we, treat our neighbors and ourselves and push ourselves. So I learned a lot about Miss Betty over the last week. I wrote here, commitment to neighbors is what struck me a lot. So thank you guys for being here and sharing her with us. I really, Antonina already said elaborately. I just want to thank you once more time to Public Works for incredible work done during our snowstorm. As Antonina said, so I don't want to repeat all of these things. Like, we haven't seen this snow and mix of ice as well in so long. So it's one of those things that's tough to prepare for annually, like as you're planning and managing the city. So I do want to thank residents for being patient, because it's tough we all want our house to be clean first, then be able to do, but we're in a state of emergency for the first 2-3 days. So it's just one of those things where you got to make sure fire department can get to every house if they need to, or police and etc. So I wanted to say thank you to MSC, Trillo Brothers. I think they did a fantastic job. My kids enjoy watching snow being removed. So we had a watch party at our window and our door, and my kids are getting waves back, and my son's heart is just melting when he sees even trash pickup, recycle pickup guys. It's a mandatory that they wave back to him, and he can't believe that he gets a wave back. It's kind of like come to our house and see a little boy get happy every Monday and Thursday. It's amazing. And PD and fire department, I want to just say thank you guys for always doing such a professional job about around our city. We're lucky to have our own fire department and police department. Well, fire department, yeah. Not ours, but sure. Antonina, you're next on my list here. It takes a lot to manage snowstorms. So really thank you for managing all this, keeping council, keeping residents updated, and all your staff. And not only that, but still having so many updates for us about all the other things that are happening. So city doesn't stop just because there's a snowstorm. So thank you for pursuing grants, for pursuing all these programs. I love the libraries, so I'm so excited about it. Every time I go through a neighborhood that has those little libraries, and I stop by, I look around, and I think it's the greatest thing, like to have, literacy spots where you can, create their curiosity at any age level, and and it's one of those, low hanging fruits. I think that we can collaborate as a city and help. Could not agree more that literacy is the pillar of everybody's success in their life. I'm very happy to say that Denbrac has, rural data center conversation, as something that cannot be built in our vicinity. So I know this is not within Newcastle, but very much would impact Newcastle if it was built there. I'm not against development. I'm just saying it wasn't one of those right things to build at the time, and there's no infrastructure and not much, So just don't come at me with, you're not for building. I'm just not. I don't think we're ready as a state even to build data centers left and right without knowing more about it and preparing ourselves a little better for that if we are even going for data centers. But we can be responsible in our growth and and job growth as well. And lastly, just want to ask about when is the mid-year budget meeting? And you already referenced it. I wanted to ask it before the meeting, so just curious if we have a date for that.
I have not selected a date and before the end of the month, so it'll be either end of this month or the beginning of next. You'll hear from me by the end.
Thank you.
Mr. Dillon.
I'll be brief. A date on Newcastle, May 16th, Saturday. We're looking for neighbors to open up their homes and gardens. One or the other, or both would be great. If you're interested, let me know. Another thing is I do Meals on Wheels. I have a route every Friday. They are in desperate need of drivers. If you want to do once a month, you just want to be a substitute or a set route, please touch base with me and we can get you signed up for Meals on Wheels.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, I'd like to express my sincere condolences to the Petty family for your loss. Teal was certainly a instrumental person in the city of Newcastle, in the state of Delaware. And as I said before, your family's like legendary in Newcastle, and you're like part of the foundation it was built on. So again, it's a extreme loss for the city. I'd just like to remind everyone, when the Newcastle County side property tax appeals are due March 14th. So that's not for the current tax year, that's for next year. It comes up quick. I just wanted to mention it here, because it is kind of an odd date, but March 14th is the date that your form needs to be in to appeal your property tax assessment. Keep an eye out for on Facebook and hopefully in the newspaper. We're going to start up the Old Newcastle Litter Crew again. Hopefully we'll have an event next month, of course, weather permitting. And lastly, I'd like to thank the city administrator, Public Works, and our outside contractor for the snow removal. I was kind of watching Facebook, watching the storm. I seen some complaints. I wrote out to the places where I seen people complaining. Of course, it wasn't perfect, but they were all passable. I notified the city administrator, hey, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm seeing. She was already on it. She had already, taken care of most of the problems, and the other problems that were addressed within 24 hours. So I do appreciate all the work that you did on that. I know it's a lot of time, it's a lot of after hours time, but I think for the most part that the city was well maintained. Thank you.
As with others, of course, I recognize the Petty family. Thank you for your presence here tonight and for sharing Teal with all of us and for all the hard work she did for the city. In terms of the storm, well, these last 2 weeks have been quite the challenge, haven't they, for all of us. Personally, it took me 4 or 5 hours to dig out my car and carry the snow to the vacant lot down the block after I ran out of room at the curb. And my husband had to do the same with his car. I'm sure many others of you had exactly the same experience. All my neighbors were out doing the same thing. So we commiserated with each other. And I'm grateful to everyone who cleared the snow and ice from their sidewalks and around their cars, and especially to those who helped their neighbors who couldn't do it themselves. I'm also grateful to Public Works, MSC, Goodwill, and our police department for their work to keep us safe and make it possible to get where we needed to go as soon as possible. Thank you all. Mayor, here.
I've extended my condolences to the Petty family, but I want to tell a funny story, actually. Each time Teal ran for office on council, again, she had these, and I'm not exaggerating, little tiny campaign signs, little tiny ones. And I guess she went around with her grandchildren and others putting up these little signs everywhere. And the grandchildren, I believe, had actually made some of them. So I remember that as being kind of, a really fun memory about her. February is Black History Month, and it's a time to recognize the history, resilience, and contributions of Black Americans here in Newcastle and across the country. It's also a reminder that the work of building a fair and inclusive community continues every day. I also want to thank Public Works, the police department, the fire department, MSC, Cirillo Brothers. Again, you're hearing it from all of us. They were out all night and so many hours. And I know I wouldn't want to do it. I'm grateful that I retired and I did not have to go out in the storm anymore as a medic. So, and it had challenges, and Antonina handled them quite well. And we rarely deal with storms like this anymore. And I believe many of us have forgotten how a snowplow works. And it is, by design, meant to push or plow the snow off to the side of the road or whatever's there, which might be a car, and in many cases, a car. And hence the term plowed in that we're all familiar with over the years. So these snowplows can't maneuver precisely around parked cars. And they can't keep putting the plow up and down in order not to plow some snow up into a driveway. Otherwise, the street wouldn't be plowed at all because it would just be going up and down. Keep that in mind. I'd like to acknowledge Ollie Plant. He lives over on 6th Street. And a young lady whose name I don't actually know, who went around helping to dig out their neighbors. Abby, thank you. So, there was some complaints that there's no more kids going around earning money to dig people out. Well, here were two, but I'd like to give them some kudos. In these last few weeks, I have, and perhaps many of you have watched the venerable monks walk from Texas to Washington, D.C. They arrived in D.C. today. Their walk reminds us of the value of reflection, compassion, and peace, things that we all could use a little bit more of. And Antonina, it used to be that the whale was your most memorable incident so far as city administrator. Is it still it, or did the storm outdo it?
I think the whale.
The whale. So anyways, and with Valentine's Day approaching, it's a good moment to appreciate the people in our lives and the community we share. Love isn't just about every day, or it's not about one day. It's about showing care for one another, especially when things are challenging. So thank you to our residents for your patience, your engagement, and continuing to show up for one another when it counts.
Sorry about that. Two acknowledgements that I neglected to make. I know there was a presentation earlier this evening, and I want to thank Councilman Joe Day in regards to the building codes ordinance that he brought forward and his visionary thought to add in the sprinkler. So Councilman Day, thank you for that. And then Chief, I attended the funeral, and I was also part of the procession on Saturday, and it was very impressive to see your men and women at work, also in tandem with the Wilmington Police Department. As the family and the procession made their way from the church to town. It was very impressive. And as we got to 6th in Delaware, it was also impressive and not surprising to see Mr. Bill Emery out there in the freezing cold, out there directing the funeral procession. So thank you, sir.
Goodwill Fire Company, Captain Moore.
Good evening, everyone. In front of you is the January 26th report. I just wanted to go into detail with it a little bit. I know last month, as we transitioned to this new a new system for the fire reporting system, we were unable to provide the fire department aspect of it. Tonight, you do have it partially. Usually in the fire reporting side of it, you'll see that there's a detailed list on what we went on. Well, since they switched to this new way of gathering information and how we record it, when I printed it out, it left a lot of questions and a lot of confusion with how it reads. So I had to submit a ticket, so it's going to take a little bit longer. Hopefully, they're able to do something on their end in order to make it a little bit more easily read. If not, I'll print it out as it is, and I'll update you on how to interpret it better. So we still stay pretty consistent with our EMS and fire runs. As you can see, of course, the snowstorm didn't help matters any. So it definitely they kept us busy, just like it kept everybody else busy. In reference to the snowstorm, I just want to touch base a little bit. I know during the snowstorm, you might see one of our utility vehicles go out with a plow on it, and maybe a fire truck fire on it, with an ambulance call. That's only for to be able to ensure that we're able to get into that emergency safely, whether we have to make a pathway in. We'll have crews for that. So if you have to assist with shoveling a path to a driveway, a sidewalk to gain entry into the house, to help with the attraction of the patient. By all means, it's not to go around what we don't trust or we have no faith in, the city or anything like that with their plowing. So that's not the case at all. Our district also goes outside of the city limits as well. So it's more for that area where if they have an HOA, they may not have a plow company come in right away. And obviously, we all know that 911 happens at any time. So we want to ensure that the patient that's calling 911 has a prompt, where we can have a prompt response in order to get to them to help get them the care that is needed. Lastly, unfortunately, with the cold weather that we're having, we also take advantage of some training as well. So we're using this time to refresh our skills on the ice rescue aspect of what we do for the water business. I know this Thursday we will be going out to Dugan's, to a pond that we have out there. We'll be doing some hands-on stuff out there. So just to let you all know that we still get out there and keep our skills up on these cold weathers. Hopefully that's changing. So.
Thank you, Captain Moore.
Just a quick question. It sounds like a fun exercise on Thursday. Good luck. I'm gonna drink my warm coffee at home. If this is a stupid question, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to ask still. Do you have any advice about carbon monoxide during this time when, doors, windows are not open as much and heaters or running furnaces and, beyond battery, and stuff like, is there better detector or is there some smarter devices we can install on our houses that you would recommend?
Yeah, I don't think one device is better than the other. Having a device is a positive, right? Something that's able to detect it is key. Whether it be a battery one or whether it be an electric one with a battery backup. Either way, as long as the battery is good, you're in good shape. It's always good that, even in this kind of weather, especially with this ice that, came on top of the, snow, power goes out. If you do have a generator, I know a lot of people have a generator, power certain devices in their home, refrigerators, that kind of stuff. Is to make sure the generator's outside, not keep the generator, in a garage or anything like that. That's where we end up seeing issues. Or for cars, some people might start cars up in the garage and all that, having the door open. So that all builds on that. So just remember that anything with gasoline starts up and all, you want to keep it outside, run an extension cord in, that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
And if I can too, people who have high efficiency units in their homes, you have, instead of chimneys, you have PVC vents that come out of your homes. A lot of times these are low coming out of your foundations. You can have snow drifts up against your homes. Always take notice that those are not blocked by snow drifts, because of course that's where your carbon monoxide comes out. And if they are blocked by snow drift, that will back up into your homes. So that's just something to take notice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, public comments.
Before we move on, I just have one more announcement, if that's all right.
Sure.
You'll see it in your crier this month, but I did put a section in regarding Separation Day. I've reached out to most of the nonprofits and organizations within our community, and we're encouraging floats in the Separation Day parade this year that represent America 250. So if you are a part of an organization and you would like to be a part of that, there is a link to that in the crier and on our website. But if you'd like to discuss it further, please reach out to me. Thank you.
Okay, public comments, the usual, there's a sign-in sheet on the podium. Please speak into the microphone so that everyone can hear you and the recording picks it up. And everyone has 3 minutes.
Good evening. Yeah. Good evening. My name is Bernadette Ruff. I live in 157 2nd Street. I'm speaking with regarding to resolution 2025-53. Before I have my comment, I just want to make a clarification. There was a court case held in the state of Delaware court with the city of Newcastle, and it was regarding a property on 2nd Street. And the state refers to the property behind my house as a right-of-way, not a street or an alley. This was an issue in the case. So I just want to clarify it's called a right-of-way. So I've lived on 2nd Street since 1998. Everyone has always respected, accepted that the right-of-way is not to be blocked for long periods of time. This is important for safety if emergency vehicles need to get in the back. By accepting this resolution, you are not creating anything new. All you're doing is stating what has always been the practice, the norm, the understanding until recently. To address Mr. Day's comment from the last meeting regarding the resolution not resolving neighborhood disagreements, as far as I'm concerned, the disagreement we had in our neighborhood over parking back on the hill, the trustees resolved that. They decided that the paved area up on the hill there would be a trustee parking lot. And that's just like the parking lot down on Chestnut Street that the trustees own. So people are allowed to park on the parking lot on Chestnut Street without any retaliation. I really hope you support this resolution to help the police accomplish their job without confusion. And it is confusing. I don't know how many of you know what side of the parking lot in Chestnut is owned by the trustees versus what side is owned by the town. The right of way in back of my house goes out 20 feet. This was established by the state of Delaware when they gave us the property in back. Anyway, the right of way from Toners to Chestnut is only 10 feet. Thank you.
Constable Petty. I just wanted to really just take time out to thank Chief McCabe and the police force for everything that they did at my mom's funeral. My family and I couldn't be more grateful for everything that you did, including the Wilmington Police Department. That was well beyond what we expected, so we were extremely grateful. You did great. I'm sure my mom would have been very proud of everything that you said. Brian, I want to also make sure that I acknowledge you and thank you for everything that you did. Leading up to it, as you can imagine, this has been a difficult several weeks and months for us. So we are extremely appreciative of everything. And we are beyond grateful also for the proclamation that you did for my mom. I'm sure she would be very honored. So thank you.
Before you start that, I just want to add something that Captain Tim said about the detector. He's a wealth of information, and one thing he pointed out, different from smoke detectors you put on your ceiling, you do not, because I mounted it on the ceiling, you do not want to mount it high because obviously the gases are low. So when you put in a new detector, please mount it low where it can save your life, because on the ceiling, it's not going to do much. Thank you. Good evening, fellow residents. First, I'd like to thank MSC and Public Works for the fine job they did, and firmly support what's been going on with the playground. As details of every step were given out to the public, where there was no guessing, no wondering, and the work that was done to get funding, just simply amazing. So I want to thank the crew and group that made that happen. For the record, a couple of things that I might state. I would check with the city before you take it as gospel. Because the law students that I'm working with concerning issues within the city are still being worked on. Nothing's been finalized, no facts, no conclusions. So I just want to make that plain. I've asked many times concerning meeting links to the different projects. Here we go again with the battery and them continuing, going into the third year of their forming whatever they're doing. They've granted an extension, and I do not feel that they can wag the dog. They're the tail, and I think they're asking for more and more and more. And I think, in my humble opinion, you should vote any more requests down. Shut it down and tell them, build it as it is, or stop. They even went to the trustees, and the trustees turned it down for certain things. So again, just that. Dog park. I've requested a ton of information, have not gotten full accounting as of current. It's definitely shooting for over budget. The survey, I even asked for a copy of that. No survey really exists, or they should provide copies of it. From what I've gotten so far, I'm up to, I think, 91 people signing it, and only 8 out of 91 have said that they were for it. And I would be willing to bet if we took another poll and published it this time, that's no doubt. We don't, $12 million, but we really don't have that money to be able to spend on something that people are not going to generally use. So I ask that that gets closed down. Councilman Bryan, thank you for all the work that you do. And hopefully the council will approve money going to your special fund.
Sorry, good evening. My name is David Myla. Jane, my wife and I, we are relatively new to Newcastle. We moved here 3.5 years ago. We're at 167 East Second Street. And I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that Dr. Roof mentioned about resolution 2025-53. It pertains to the safety involved in part of the park, not the park, in the right way. Particularly in light of the recent weather we've had, and some of the things that were stated tonight that were very interesting, where people like the chief of the fire department touched upon quick access to homes, and having to anticipate having to plow through snow and get quick response to people who need help. The very narrow alleyway or right of way that is blocked with cars being parked there is essentially inaccessible by emergency vehicles. So I'm hoping that you will pass that resolution based solely on the fact that it can be a very unsafe situation. And while we can't anticipate the kind of problems it would have, like the weather, those things do happen. And what we don't want is a perfect storm of problems that would cause harm to residents. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then the next item is a presentation by Suzanne Swift regarding the playground.
Good evening to the council and to the Castilians. The last time I was here, I gave a lot of information about all the different parts and pieces of the playground. And the very last thing that we talked about was the fencing. So Antonina has asked me to come back and talk a little bit more about that, how it came into being, what the different parts and pieces are, and what you should be thinking about when you think about the Battery Park Playground and its fence. So to start, the idea of the fence came along pretty early on when we were working with one of our partners, the John Leach School. We had the principal come out and walk us through how she envisioned her students would use the playground. And she said almost immediately that there needed to be 2 entrances, one on either side of the playground. And so that's where we started even conceiving that a fence might be necessary for what we were planning to build. She further let us know that some of her students are on the autism spectrum and that kids who have autism really love water. We're right by water. And so because the Newcastle Battery Park Playground is billed as an accessible playground and will draw kids not only on the autism spectrum, but with many different ways of playing in the playground, it became clear that we needed to have a fence to keep them safe. So what we did was we reached out to a fencing company and we asked them what they could do for us. Being aware that we're in a historic district, we also talked with Hack and with Leva, who is the city's architect, and tried to get a sense of what would be appropriate, what would fit into our town's aesthetic and colonial past. And so what Fensco, the company that we have a quote from, and we will be getting other quotes, Antonina has lots of fencing connections, thankfully. They put together a quote for a fence that has 2 4-foot wide single swing gates and 1 8-foot wide double swing gate. And it would go around the perimeter of the playground. Now, currently the borders for the playground are curvy. In order for the fence to really do its job, they needed to be straight. So we're working to get those borders straightened out. And the fence, if we can put it in at the same time, the curve that goes around, the border goes around, would actually go right into the curb. And so they would go right into the concrete. The fence itself would be 4 feet high. It would be something akin to the iron rolled steel Aberdeen commercial, which is a 3-rail style fence. The bottom rail would be flush with the bottom of the pickets, and each picket would be about 3/4 inches or exactly 3/4 inches, and the gates were fabricated of the same material. I have pictures here, which I'm happy to share, unfortunately not up on here, but that I'll pass around that show what this fence would look like. And I think everybody will agree that as a steel fence, they're kind of nice, and that this is something that will go with the character of the town and will act to not block the view of people as they're looking at the playground, and will really add to the experience and keep our kids safe. The quote that I've received so far is about $63,000, almost $64,000. Fences are expensive, especially if they're made of steel. And Encore has begun or has continued to fundraise to meet this cost. So this is something that we're hoping we can cover entirely with the grants and the fundraising that our community has been so generous with providing on behalf of the playground. Do you have any questions about the fence?
Before you ask your questions, I just want to add to the conversation that I did have a conversation with Mr. Wilson. Sorry, thank you, president of the trust, and spoke to him about squaring the location of the playground and making it a little more clean for us to actually consider installing the fence. And that was perfectly acceptable with him, and along with the installation of the fence. And we had further conversations with our historic architect, Leila Hamroon, and we'll continue to have conversations if we would like to continue pursuing the fence to ensure that it is within the nature of our historic city and would reflect the other fences in the area. I just wanted to assure you of those 2 things.
Just interject, I'm on the board for our SAPA and we're doing $1,000 donation to Encore.
Thank you.
That's okay with me.
Sure. Yes, so sure, sorry.
Now, is this gonna break into any kind of locks ever being put on this to lock out the park from the public?
That's a good question. That's not something that we had foreseen. That's something that I guess city council will have to consider.
That would be a concern, because as of now, it's never locked down, it's always open to the public. And that would be a concern of mine, that now all of a sudden, the park can be locked down at any time that somebody feels they wanna lock the park.
Well, it's not the whole park, it's only the
Well,
playground.
I'm hoping for playground, excuse me, I'm just, the playground.
It isn't something that we've even considered at this point.
It never is.
There isn't a quote out there for locks on the fence. So I think it's something the city council will have to consider.
Thanks for coming, Suzanne, and, keep pursuing this, work, with Encore. I know it's endless hours of research and, fundraising, so thank you guys for doing this. I understand that, fence argument. I think this was one of the feedback we received early on from, Leach, principal, so it's kind of like grown on us probably because we've been talking about it for so long, but it is one of those things like, will it impede the view? But as I'm walking at the trustees did a great job over at the, excuse me, in our cities, kind of similar, not same fence, but something similar. And I never thought it would work, but it ended up being, like a nice barrier, over, in our park. So, and in addition to that, I just wanted to say, if you think, if you want to look at it, you can go to our Candu playground, open to I believe it's state or county playground for, it's, it was built fully for, with children with disabilities in mind. So it's fenced in as well. So there's no locks coming in and out, but like there's fences around. It's different. There's no view there. There's nature around it. But so that's a little different. But I guess what I'm saying, there's precedent for this. That's not unusual to have fence around playground as you think about it. So I just wanted to, say that if anybody needs a visual, that's one I can think of. Obviously, every school playground is fenced in as well, but this one's kind of like you can see how it's fenced in a couple of feet around the playground, which isn't typically for every school. So
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Madam President, I just have one question. So maybe I was lost, but it sounded like you said that you're gonna pour a concrete curb and the fence will go on top of the concrete curb.
Correct.
And so is the cost of the curbing in with the cost of the fence, or is that just okay, I didn't think so.
So there's subsurface that has to go beneath our resilient surface, which is what makes the playground accessible. And the curb is required to hold in the resilient surface. So it has to be the concrete curb.
And so how far beneath the grade will the concrete go? I'm asking because, I mean, obviously with the situation we have now with the ice and everything and frost and heaving, in the long run, it could be a maintenance issue. So I'm just trying to get an idea.
Yeah, I didn't bring that number with me today, but I can shoot you an email with all the information. That was the subsurface proposal. The one I was brought today was the fencing proposal. So I'll get that for you.
It would be nice to see the detail, like the cross section of the fence and the curb. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for asking that. I thought it was included. I just assumed it was part of that. So would the framing of the playground as well be part of the subsurface as well, work like making the triangle or whatever shape ends up being square potentially? You said it would have to be obviously straight lines instead of, full natural path. Would that be part of the subsurfacing quote, or would that be part of the fencing quote?
Subsurface.
Or a third?
It's the subsurfacing.
Okay. So that's an unknown at this point.
What's an
unknown number at this point?
Oh, the cost?
Yeah, for the subsurfacing part.
Oh, no, we have a quote for that. I didn't bring it with me tonight, but we do have a quote.
And do you know roughly what it is? You have to share it if you're gonna come back again next month.
I'll come back with it. We're looking to bring it down. One of the things that we're looking to save money on is by having volunteers, companies who want to contribute to building the playground, take over as much of the subsurfacing help as they possibly can. So we're working with our vendor to identify parts within their quote that volunteers can do.
Thank you for the presentation and the update. As mentioned, I think in September or October when you first came, I definitely encourage you to continue to have conversations with Layla in regards to the materials, character, et cetera. In regards to, you said steel, do we think it's gonna be like slate gray, black? Any thoughts there?
It would be black.
It's not gonna be colored, pink, I'm just saying.
No pink, no, we've
Okay.
been told to keep it subtle and black is what people will have.
Okay, and I think there's a picture that's being circulated, so I haven't seen it yet, but to ask in regards to the fence, I know you said 4 feet high. At its apex, will it be flush? I've seen some fences like with almost like spikes. Just wondering, is it gonna be flush?
Here, let me circulate.
Okay. And then, the other question that I had was concerning the gate. I'm sure that gate is gonna get a lot of use, in terms of opening it, closing it. So I would encourage you to talk with vendors or possibly, any other current playgrounds around, or if there's like a soft close, or if there's pads or something that can kind of, create some resistance or buffer, in regards to clanging, banging, and or exacerbate the maintenance for that gate.
Yeah, good idea. Thank you, Brian.
People can't see it here, so there are no spikes in this particular image. The gate is flush at its apex. It's kind of capped.
If there aren't any other questions, thank you very much for allowing me to present tonight and for all the support that both the city and the council has given to this Battery Park Playground.
Thank you for all your work on this. Okay. We now move on to new business, and we will not be considering the last 3 items on the agenda tonight, numbers 4, 5, and 6, because the people who want to present regarding these motions need time to get some more information together.
So I'd also like to postpone number 3 as well, as we need some additional time with that.
Oh, okay. So we only have 2 more things to go.
And if we can just motion to table those items to March, so.
Okay. Would anyone move to table resolution 2026-15, 2026-16, 2026-17, and 2026-18 until the March meeting? A second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, those items are all tabled. So now we will deal with resolution 2025-53, a resolution to restrict parking along both sides of the alley beginning 120 feet east of Second Street, East 2nd Street, and proceeding in a southwesterly direction approximately 150 feet. I believe we've read this resolution at a prior meeting, so we don't have to read it again. I think we have some additional information to be presented tonight. Is that correct, Ms. Tentalo?
Yes, Chief McCabe is here to discuss this, and at the last meeting, you asked for me to have a conversation with Trustee President Wilson regarding the trustee parking lot that is adjacent to this alley, and regarding whether or not they would consider extending the parking lot to allow for additional parking in the lot if parking was restricted on the alley. I have spoken to Mr. Wilson, and he did bring me question back to the full board. And they are considering this. They are working to get some quotes and will make a decision once they have the quotes and whether or not it's financially feasible for them to do so. But I did want to let you know that the conversation was had and they are considering doing this.
And then I think we were deferred last month because we wanted to hear from the chief. So
I do apologize. Last month I had to leave before this was introduced, so if that caused any confusion, I apologize. This is pretty straightforward. This was the result of, I'd asked my officers to kind of give us a solution to an issue that had been addressing for a while. It has led to some neighborhood dispute, but all in all, straightforward. This road is really not conducive for parking. And this isn't unprecedented. We did something like this on Penn Street. You'll recall there was no restriction there. We were having issues several years ago, and this was a very simple fix to that. So this is not removing convenience for convenience sake. This street just is not practical for street parking, off-street parking, or street parking. So.
any other comments or questions from council?
And I'll just reiterate what I mentioned last time, like we just moved to East Fifth, but we lived on West Fifth where we had an easement, like you mentioned earlier, Ms. Bernadette. And it was, a little wider and allows for parking, but the main area has always been left and understood that you don't park there unless, I don't know, if somebody brings mulch or something and it's just kind of like empty the car or truck or whatever and, leave. So like it was never, we never had a dispute as neighbors there. So I guess what I'm saying, last time I mentioned, I'm hoping that neighbors can resolve this rather than city having to make I wish that in my backyard back then, the city wouldn't have to involve and say, we need to pass a resolution for people to say, okay, we can't park here. So I'm happy to vote on this resolution, but I guess I'm still a firm believer that this is a really close community that I hope that, any dispute neighbors have, we can resolve with assistance of PD if necessary. But that's just something I wanted to mention, that was my desire initially, that, just seeing this up, so.
Other comments or questions from council? Mr. Zell?
So they'll still be able to pull up, have their car there with the four ways on for unloading situations. Is that correct?
I think so. Are you asking?
I don't
live there, but I think it's a one-way, a little wider than one-way road. Like, I don't think two cars can meet each other there and pass by, but you can go and unload anything you want. I think they're probably not a big truck, but once again, I'll let Chief speak.
Well, I guess that would depend on the sign. If it said no stopping, standing, or parking, that technically you would be prohibiting that as well. So it would depend on the signage.
But this resolution simply says no parking, correct? So if we put up no parking signs and someone pulled in to unload mulch and your officers happened to come along and see them and they were clearly unloading and then they moved the car, that would not be considered a violation, is that correct?
We obviously use discretion, right, when we enforce a lot of these ordinances. So if that was leading to an issue where we needed to correct that issue, and telling somebody to move would correct that issue, then we would do that. But to Councilman's point, we prefer not to be in the middle of those types of disputes if it could be handled, by the neighbors themselves. But technically, if parking is prohibited, then it's prohibited. So.
I know in many houses in town have very narrow front doors, and I'm thinking of someone who's having a refrigerator delivered that perhaps wouldn't fit in the front door but would fit in the back door. And if the delivery truck pulled around to the back to unload the refrigerator,
it would be no different than if somebody were to double park, right? We obviously we're not looking to generate revenue through parking violations.
No.
So we're faced with making these kind of discretionary decisions on a regular basis. So we're not actively looking to make anybody's life miserable.
Okay.
City Administrator or the Chief, was there any conflict resolution offered with this? I mean, it does seem like a neighbor dispute, and I don't know, I just keep coming up with more questions, to be honest with you, than answers here, but.
Yes, we've offered mediation, but again, I feel like I have an obligation to the officers that have been responding to this issue for quite some time. That this was a solution that they generated to say, this is a short-term fix for sure, but we're hoping that it's a long-term fix because the foundation of the issues resolve around the parking. And, you know, when you do an analysis of the street or the right of way or whatever we're calling it, it's just not conducive to have parking. So it is, in our opinion, very straightforward.
So, but it sounds like you've been called numerous times to this location.
Yes, we have.
I've, since the last meeting, I've tried to dig into this. And I want to recognize the totality of the facts and the information that has been shared with this body, both via email. I'm sure people have been approached. I know I have. I've solicited information from people in the area to the extent I was able to. Quite honestly, I heard the gamut. I've heard some people blame one person, some people blame the other person, honestly. I've reached out to people who have lived in this town a lot longer than I have. One of them was back around when Planning Commission had the subgroup to analyze parking in the city. And this person didn't know anything about it. But when I started to present it to them, they said, does this have anything to do with visibility to the water? And I said, I don't know. So I just thought that was an interesting commentary. Additionally, I've gone out to the parking lot area where we have Fort Casimir historical marker on about 10 different occasions since the last meeting. That lot is pretty much full in the evening and during the day. From my count, it's kind of hard to tell with the snow the last couple of weeks. It's about 18 parking spots, with about 2 or 3 of them designated for EV. And then there's also signs for emergency vehicles, etc. A part of the totality of the facts is also knowing that the trustees, and I say the trustees because they own part of the lot with the city, but what's in the environment around there. And a part of that is Fort Casimir. I know they want to build out Fort Casimir, benches, things of that nature that will draw more people to that area. I know that the Bull Hill Boat Club is getting up and working, and that may draw more people to that area. I know that we are trying to do the Delaware River Trail extension. There will be a great amenity to the city, but potentially will draw people to that area. I mentioned last month about it's somewhat distant, but I think it's related, and that's the dog park in terms of where that's located. What I don't know is, for example, on 2nd and Chestnut right now, we don't have the dog park fence there, but along that side where we're talking about, there are any parking spots going to be taken away that then potentially maybe push a few people further down, closer to 2nd Street. And it seems like this would, from the picture, that this alleyway, right away, street, covers about 3 or 4 homes, which would potentially move, by my estimation, between maybe 6 to 8 cars out of there and into this lot that's pretty much always full, or onto 2nd Street.
Right. Chief, do you know Are there typically 6 to 8 cars parked back there?
No, and again, the officers that were weighing in on this felt that this would not be an issue with parking. There's parking on Second Street, there's parking in the lot. They weren't seeing anything that would concern them.
Yeah, I appreciate the thoughtfulness of that, Councilperson Mataway. I mentioned that last week too, that my concern was, that parking lot right there, close to those houses being, overloaded by these additional 2-3 vehicles. And then I thought of, well, Second Street is where, where the front of the house is, so they probably can park there same way everybody else in that historic Newcastle parks, luxuries to have easement to like wide easement where you could park. But this doesn't seem to be one of those. So that was my initial thought, but then I thought of the front of the street where, you probably can park at that point. So just my thought process around that. But yeah, it's really good to be thoughtful about all these different developments we're trying to do as a city as well.
And I need to say this, at the last council meeting, I referenced speaking to quote unquote the two parties. That was a initial reaction and response that I had. After sleeping on it and going through my process, I actually decided against that. I wanted my review to be as independent as possible. And I say this for a fact, none of the parties, quote unquote, in question can say that they had a conversation with me about this. Because I wanted to be independent, I wanted to respect the process, I wanted to research it on my own, I wanted to hear from other parties. And again, some of the parties pointed fingers at both parties.
Any other comments or thoughts? Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of resolution?
I don't think you have a motion.
I'm sorry, is there a motion to approve resolution 2025-53?
Like I said, I really hope that this can be resolved by, residents, but I'll put a motion out there for this resolution since I do trust Chief and his guys' report. So, but I hate that we have to make this resolution go forward.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
I oppose.
So I guess since it's so close, yes.
Council President Suzanne Souter,
Yes.
Councilperson Joseph Day,
No.
Councilperson Andrew Zelt,
Yes.
Councilperson Nerman Zubaka,
Yes.
Councilperson Brian Mataway.
No.
So it looks like the resolution is adopted by a vote of 3-2. And the final item on tonight's agenda that we're considering tonight is resolution 2026-14, a resolution to reappoint David Atherton to the Municipal Services Commission. Mr. Atherton has been serving on this commission. You have in your packet a letter from the general manager of the municipal services in favor of his reappointment. It reiterates the accomplishments he's made in his first term as an MSC commissioner. So are there any comments or questions on this?
I sit on the board of MSD.
Just like last name for me.
All right.
Since I sit on MSC as well, I just wanted to say that David is a real asset to the board. He's very diligent, asks a lot of questions, does a lot of research, does homework, and he would like to see him remain.
I just wanted to say, well, thank you, Mayor, and both Bill, Scott, for high praise We know our neighbor, and we know he's great, so, we're lucky to have such dedicated public servants in a lot of our commissions, so, MSC's running great, so thank you guys for doing a fantastic job, so.
Okay, is there a motion to approve resolution 2026-14? A second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The resolution's adopted. And is there a resolution to adjourn? A second, don't want to jump in place. A second? Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Good night. All right, thank you all very much.